What a game. Listen, the Milwaukee Bucks completed their largest comeback of the season to defeat the Detroit Pistons 120 to 118. When Giannis Antetokounmpo was ejected in the third quarter, things started looking pretty shaky for the Bucks. Down 10 in the fourth quarter, the Bucks leaned on Damian Lillard. There was some Dame time action going on there. In addition to leaning on Dame, we rolled out a Dame campaign, Malik Beasley, Jay Crowder, Brook Lopez lineup to close it out, and they got the job done. We're going to break down all the action from tonight's win, plus talk about that Giannis ejection and a lot more on tonight's episode of Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Truly appreciate you tuning in, and thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first watch or first listen of the day. I'm your host, Camille Davis, and you can catch me weekly on the Technical Foul podcast, as well as Cheesehead TV's Carry the G and MKE. Joining me is the founder of BrewHoop.com and the longtime voice of the pod, Frank Madden. Today's episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50 plus infections. Get yours today at jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. All right, Frank, listen. Giannis was ejected with what I believe was one of the softest technical foul calls I've seen in quite some time. The man can't even mean mug and stare at somebody's face anymore. What is the world coming to? But he was ejected with 9 minutes left in the third quarter, and the Bucks were leading at that time 73 to 60. The Pistons went on a crazy run to end the third quarter up 95 to 90. At the time of his ejection, Giannis had 15 points on 6 of 16 shooting and a team leading 9 rebounds in 22 minutes at that time. As I mentioned in the open, the Bucks found themselves down by 10 points with a little bit over 7 minutes left to play in the fourth quarter. And at that moment, that lineup, Beasley came in for Marjan, and I was sitting there like, okay, first it was Cam Payne out there with Damian Lillard as the backcourt, and I was like, this isn't working. The Pistons lead continues to rise, and then here comes Malik Beasley in the game for Marjan, and I'm like, whoa, we're really rolling out a Dame Cam Malik lineup. How is this going to work? But the zone defense with the three of them and Jay and Brook, it worked pretty well for the Bucks to be able to slow down the Pistons and take that lead. Dame time was real, and Brook anchoring that zone defense really did help to seal the deal for the team tonight.
I mean, first off, let's put the explicit content warning on this pod. Children, ready your earmuffs, because the Giannis ejection. I mean, come on, guys. Like, I mean, just two things can be true. Okay, on the
Yep.
one hand, Giannis can, have the obligation to know better. He picked up a cheap tech in the first half, so he's on the edge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's got to know that in the world of NBA officials, Scott Twardowski and the like,
Yeah.
are liable to break out a completely like bullshit. Look at me. This is not an entertainment product. Fuck you, fans, because I'm a twerp type call. And that's it. Like, you can't challenge it. You can't review it. Like, this little dude calls a tech from, what was he, 50 feet away? He couldn't even
Midcourt.
see. He couldn't even see what Giannis did, which was basically nothing when he, like, stared at Beef Stewart for like, half a second and then turned away. And then he gives Giannis the tee and then walks away, won't look at Giannis. Predictably. So on the one hand, Giannis can, it's on Giannis. He's got to deal with BS, right? He's got to deal with bullshit from guys hacking him, officials not calling stuff, officials calling this kind of stuff. I mean, that's just the reality. He's got to be ready for that. And he's normally pretty calm guy. He doesn't normally like get too bent out of shape or anything. So on the one hand, he can be, obligated to, be held to a higher standard.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, fuck Scott Twardowski, because that can also be true. And we can also look at what he did and just say like, dude, like, what is the NBA doing here? Like, I'm sure a Pistons fan could look at it and say, well, I mean, he kind of taunted him a little bit. You can't do that. That's a technical foul. Camille Davis, you're on the Technical Foul podcast, spelled differently, but you know a technical foul. That's
Technically,
taunting technical. Yeah. To which I would ask, why? Like, what is the point of making that call in an NBA basketball game that is an entertainment product? Like what are we really trying to legislate here? So yeah, it's just dumb. And after that, obviously the Bucks should have done much better. They did not react to the Giannis ejection. Giannis had not played well. Giannis was, missing stuff left and right. He didn't play well leading up to that. He did make some nice defensive plays, but but he hadn't been playing well. But yeah, the Bucks just kind of looked totally lost once he went out. And obviously Chris Middleton not playing on the front end of the back-to-back. You thought, oh, that makes sense. Save him for the tougher game in Indiana. You should be able to win this game pretty easily. In theory, that made sense. But all of a sudden, then you're staring down the barrel of crap. We're about to get run off our own floor by Marcus Sasser and, half of the Detroit Pistons, because half the team's injured, right? I mean, as if the Pistons like weren't beatable enough, right? Like they were missing all these dudes. So yeah, I mean, it obviously things were trending towards just a really dumb loss, and they end up winning the game. And you laid it out. I mean, the lineups, like I don't know how they got enough stops with those three dudes as playing 1 through 3. But you know what? Honestly, like I almost like don't even see a point in trying to like, judge this game or the tactics in the way we normally do, because once Giannis left, it just became just a fundamentally stupid, weird game. So bank the win. Scott Twardowski can get back in his Oscar Mayer Wienermobile or whatever he drove to the game tonight, and leave the state and not have people chasing him with pitchforks, I guess. So shout out to you, Scott. But yeah, hopefully next time he's in Milwaukee, people remember and boo him relentlessly regardless of what happens, because we're petty like that, and I'm petty like that, Camille. So I'm glad we won. But yeah, just a weird game, and 5-2 in the weirdest way possible.
Truly. And every game that we have when it feels kind of like, how did we exactly do this in this game? How do we pull this one out? And I mean, we talked about it a little bit at the top, but Damian Lillard, I'm gonna show a little graphic for those watching on the YouTube. The man finished with 34 points, 3 assists, and 3 steals. Some very timely steals at that as well. And one thing about Damian Lillard's stat line is like you look at it and you're just like 34 points and you're just kind of like, okay, Dame's doing Dame things. And then you look closer at it and you're like, oh, wait, Dame was 2 of 12 from 3. Like he still had 34 points in 34 minutes while being 2 of 12 from 3, in large part because the man is a free throw merchant. He just knows how to get to the line. He was 12 of 13 from the free throw line this evening. Already more 10-plus free throw games than we've seen from Drew Holiday and Eric Bledsoe combined. And we are just a few games into this season. Like that is a talent that this man has. And I know a lot of fans have had problems with players who tend to grift, quote unquote, for free throws, such as a James Harden. But the way that Dame does it is so interesting because he is just relentlessly attacking. And I know we mentioned this after their last game as well, where it's like you're watching him and you're like, he doesn't stop. It doesn't matter if he doesn't get the whistle one time. He's going to continue to attack over and over and over. And he's going to find a way to positively contribute to the team, even if his shot isn't falling. So when his shot's not falling, he's getting to the free throw line. When it's time for the fourth quarter, they're trusting the ball to be in his hands. He's making the right plays. He's getting to the free throw line. He's being active on defense. And Dame time is a real thing. And it's so interesting to continuously watch it. And I definitely want to get your opinion on Dame's performance this evening, as well as Brook Lopez and just some of the other key guys who helped pull out the victory tonight with that wonky lineup that I don't think any Bucks fan would have guessed would work. But because I know I didn't. I'll speak. Maybe I shouldn't project on everybody else, and I'll speak just for myself on that. But I do want to get your opinion on that after we talk about our good friends over at eBay Motors. Our partners over at eBay Motors has teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd in order to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week all season long. And if you play fantasy basketball, you know it is a very long season. You have a lot to manage. So whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. And if you're not listening to Locked On Fantasy Basketball, you are missing out if you're a fantasy basketball player. Josh Lloyd knows his stuff. So let's take a look at someone Josh has picked out for us on this week's eBay Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. Looking at the lineup that he has here, I'm going to actually highlight Brandon Miller because coming into the season, he's number 2 pick. People were shocked the Hornets would select him over Scoot Henderson, but Brandon Miller should be a pretty good fantasy starter for the week, given the fact that Terry Rozier is out recovering from his groin injury. So he should be having a lot more minutes to make a big contribution. So check out Brandon Miller as somebody to insert into your fantasy lineup. And as mentioned, Josh Lloyd from Locked On Fantasy Basketball is going to help you win your fantasy championship. And eBay Motors knows the championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. And that is the exact same with your vehicle. My last car towards the end there, problem after problem after problem, and my pockets were hurting. And I wish that I would have leaned on eBay Motors to help out with that, because with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure that your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof rack, bumpers, whatever your car needs, eBay Motor has it. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, we know everything's getting so much more expensive. And with the prices that eBay Motors has, you'll be burning rubber and not cash. So make sure you keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. The eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customer, eligible items only, and exclusions do apply with that offer. So keep that in mind, but check out eBay Motors when you get a moment. In addition to that, make sure you check out Locked On Bucks. If you have not seen yet, Justin Garcia has started some pregame shows. We preview the Pistons game tonight before the game, and we'll be back tomorrow to preview the Bucks against the Pacers. In addition to that, I won't be here for post-game duties tomorrow, but Justin's going to hold it down with Frank. So make sure you're tapped into Locked On Bucks tomorrow as we close out the week with the Pacers. Now, Frank, I was mentioning Dame and his stats and the team as a whole and everything that happened here. And it's one of those things where you're again like, how exactly did we win this game? In the pregame show that I had with Justin earlier today, we mentioned the fact that, the Pistons play at a slower pace. They're not as big of a threat from three. There are some things here with this team that should fit how the Bucks want to play, and we should see some improvement from that. And again, for the YouTube viewers, we got a little graphic here for you. Looking at the game recap, the Pistons shot better from the field overall, but the Bucks had more three-pointers fall for them. And again, the Bucks just killed at the free throw line. The Pistons went 15 of 16 from the line, while the Bucks went 27 of 32. The Pistons also out-rebounded the Bucks by a wide margin. The Pistons had 53 rebounds tonight, while the Bucks only had 36. And when it comes to fast break points, the Bucks didn't get killed. Detroit had 10 and the Bucks had 13. So Frank, when you're looking at this game, what stands out to you about how the Bucks were able to actually pull out a victory tonight?
Yeah, well, digging into those transition numbers, using the cleaning the glass stats, the Pistons were minus 6.7 points per 100 added via transition, which is horrendous. A very Bucks-like number, early season Bucks-like number. Bucks were plus 3.7, which, hey, they were positive tonight. It was actually good. It was good to run in transition. Exactly. The Pistons put up 68.4 points per play in transition, which should be impossible, but they managed that. Shout out to the Pistons for helping the Bucks transition defense numbers. They needed some help. Yeah, the offensive rebounding numbers, though, were huge for the Pistons tonight. Mm-hmm. Well, sorry, there was 36% in the half court. That is way too high. Bucks normally want to keep that in like the low 20s. Overall, Pistons were at, I think, about 30% offensive rebound rate. So that's very good. And the Bucks were terrible. So I mean that's why you see that differential. Pistons pretty good off on the offensive glass. Bucks complete non-factor on the offensive glass, just 13% of their misses they collected. But yeah, so transition finally actually helping the Bucks a little bit. But I mean, if, as far as like, just thinking about Dame and what he was able to do in this game, I mean, you said it was just really bizarre. I mean, even in the first game of the season where he scores 39, he was 4 out of 12 from 3 in that game.
Yeah.
2 out of 12 tonight. You kept waiting for him to like hit like a couple in a row, and he never got to like more than, like he hit that one early in the fourth quarter. But then after that, had a few more good looks where he's pulling up and it's like, oh, yeah, the crowd is ready to just like blow the
Pop.
roof off. And it didn't happen. So look, we've talked about kind of his history of having early season shooting struggles. And so again, I think you just have to highlight something we've been talking about a lot, which is his ability to score without just hitting a ton of threes. And again, he became a terrific free throw guy last year. He was always a good at drawing fouls and a terrific free throw shooter. But last year he kind of took it up to a whole nother level, averaging almost 10 per game. And the fact that he's at that same level this year while taking way fewer shots per game. I mean, last year he averaged 21 shots per game. This year he was at like 14 or 15 coming into tonight. It took 25 tonight, so obviously got up a ton of shots tonight. But when you think about like free throw rate, which is basically your free throw attempts divided by your field goal attempts, he basically he's like almost doubled his free throw rate this year. Like it's just absurd. I mean, almost 10 free throws attempted per game when you're taking, 14 or 15 shots per game. Like that's a crazy number. And that's why his efficiency has been almost as good this year as it was last year, despite the fact that he isn't shooting the ball well at all. So, so obviously it's a hugely important skill. And we have talked a lot about his free throws, for his ability to get to the line, obviously make free throws, 12 out of 13 tonight. But the other piece we saw tonight was, I mean, he can just put his head down and just get to the rim. And, he missed a few as well. In the first half, he got to the rim a number of times and just kind of couldn't finish when he was contested. But tonight, we saw that kind of V high pick and roll action repeatedly, and he was able to get downhill time and time again, get to the rim and finish. The go ahead basket, he kind of pulled up, hit a short little step back shot. So, yeah, I mean, he's just obviously a dynamic offensive player. And I'm enjoying it, right? Because obviously, as we've talked about, like, it's not like we were staying up for Blazers games the past few years. Like we've all seen Dame play because, we watch him play in like against the Bucks and, occasionally against other kind of primetime games. But how many primetime games, how many big games have the Blazers had the last couple of years, right? Not a lot, right? I mean, a lot of what I remember is watching him in some of those playoff series a few years back, but that's going a few years back in most cases. So yeah, it's been fun just sort of beginning to understand sort of how he creates shots, how he draws fouls, where his comfort zone is. Obviously the Bucks are still trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
Still trying to figure that out. Giannis, I think on those short rolls, like it just seems like every time he catches the ball, he like freezes and doesn't know what to do. Like he's still, I think, just having to think way too much. And I feel like Giannis is at his best when he's just kind of playing instinctively. So that continues to be a work in progress. But yeah, I mean, Dame 8 out of 13 on twos tonight, just a 2 out of 12 on threes, but all those free throws was able to obviously, ultimately carry the Bucks offense down the stretch. And, that's kind of what you were hoping. I mean, at the start of the fourth quarter, they're down. I think we all know, like, we're all just waiting for him to come to the game and just you hope that he just hits a bunch of threes and carries the Bucks to a win, kind of like what he did in the Knicks game, as well as opening night against the Sixers. And yeah, I mean, he really has not relied on the 3-pointer in the way that I think probably a lot of us would have expected, but it's encouraging in its own way. And man, I mean, when when the 3 ball starts to fall, it's going to be pretty scary to see what he can do. But before I forget, let me give a shout out to Malik Beasley.
Yes, sir.
We've been talking about the demise of Malik Beasley and why there's no reason for him to be starting, and and not that we're saying that he's like terrible or whatever. I mean, the guy, he came into the game shooting 40% from three. I think he's done what he can defensively. He's had to defend guys that normally you would not expect Malik Beasley to have to
Mhm.
defend, again, because he's paired with Dame and they're trying to conserve Dame and shield him a bit defensively. So it's kind of like, it's just a guy who's put in a role that he's just not that suited for, right? And the other piece too is, I mean, his usage is way down because there just aren't shots to take when you're on the floor with the Bucks kind of other four best players as a starter. So I think he's been put in a position that's pretty difficult for him to succeed in. And other things have been going on too. I mean, like the Bucks offense has been super bad, and it's not because Malik Beasley is not making
Right.
enough shots, right? He's shooting 40% from three. So, but shout out to him tonight. I mean, some stuff kind of similar. What do you take? Only two threes in 25 minutes or so. Hit 1 out of 2, 10 points on 6 shots, 6 rebounds, two assists, a steal, and plus 24.
Team high.
Plus anything is a big deal for Malik Beasley early in this season. For him to be plus 24, Marjan was a minus 25 in 27 minutes. I didn't think Marjan played like poorly. I thought he also hit like a couple big kind of mid-range pull-up shots early in the fourth quarter when they were just sort of trying to stay connected. But yeah, shout out to Malik. I thought this was a nice game from him, and he had the big steal late, which we thought might ice the game, but Jay Crowder missed one of the 2 free throws, and again, they were up 1 at the time, so it's not like they could have put it out of reach. But yeah, Malik Beasley, I feel good for the guy as a human being. Like he's been taking a lot of shit, and some of it from me. So yeah, I still don't think he should be the starting shooting guard for the Milwaukee Bucks. And it's sort of one of those things like the Bucks sort of scratching out these wins, I think delays the inevitability of Griff having to confront the fact that Malik Beasley should not be starting. But again, here he was. He started, and tonight he actually did enough, and he was part of that unexpected backcourt / wing trio of defenders with Payne and him. I was mostly surprised by Payne. I think I saw that he played the last 16 minutes, which is just like a Jason Terry under Jason Kidd in the playoffs type of number. Like I think in that game 6 against the Raptors, I think Jason Terry played like the last 18 minutes straight or something, something like that. And yeah, I don't know why Payne was in there that long.
It worked out.
I guess Griff was just like, man, not feeling Pat Connaughton tonight. But anyway, again, it was silly season tonight in the Bradley Center.
That's a fact.
The refs are wearing clown shoes. What are we gonna do, right? I'm not gonna get too deep on any of that stuff.
One thing I've always enjoyed about your commentary in the game, because I also try to do the same, is be accountable. If someone does something good, call it out. If someone does something bad, you call it out. It's whatever it is, but being straight about it. And Malik Beasley, like you said, does deserve some applause tonight because he has been a focal point of conversation. And like you, I still don't think he should be a starting 2 guard for this team, but I think he still has a lot of value that he can give to this team. And I want to talk to you a bit more about his value, some other rotation guys who we saw. We got some second quarter Andre Jackson Jr. minutes, which was really cool to see. But first, I want to talk to everybody about our friends over at Jace Medical. Now, I mentioned this before after our last pregame show because as host of this show and everybody who is hearing my voice in this moment, we spend a lot of time talking together. Like you hear my voice a lot. We get really excited after wins like tonight and after losses. We also get together and we talk about that as well. And I'm thankful for the connection that we have. And today I want our chat just to get a little bit more personal. I recently learned that you can get a 1-year supply on ED medications. Like, do you realize exactly what that means? You can bring on your extended travel, natural disasters, supply chain issues, whatever the case may be, you're covered. You won't have to worry about whether or not you can refill your generics for Cialis or Viagra or any other prescription. And this is possible because of our friends at Jace Medical. Go online right now at jacemedical.com to receive your 12-month supply on your daily medication. Just remember to use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a discount as well. A verified customer had this to say about Jace, quote, "I am thankful for the service. Supply chain issues caused me to cut pills and have to have it. I ordered most of my daily meds with a year supply. I also ordered the antibiotic kit. I feel secure now. Prices are lower than local pharmacies, and I highly recommend this for everyone. End quote. If you or someone you love would like to get some peace of mind by having a year's supply of any daily med, go to jacemedical.com to see if it's offered for you. Just remember to use the promo code locked on for $20 off of your purchase. All right. Now, as I mentioned, like just talking about some of the other guys on the team here who showed up for the last 5 minutes or so of today's episode, I saw a stat on Twitter. Nathan Marzian posted this as well, talking about entering into tonight's game. The Bucks in clutch time were second in offense and eighth in defense, and it sparked something in me because I've spent so much time thinking about the Dame and Giannis pairing offensively and just how well that could work with their gravity, with how well their games seem to mesh together. And seeing how they're top 10 in clutch so far in the season, I was just kind of like, that makes some sense here. And tonight when Giannis went out, I was like, oh my, like the defense might completely fall apart because the Bucks defense just hasn't looked great without Giannis on the court so far this season. And at this point, we saw Brook Lopez come in. We've had numerous conversations at this point about Brook's role on the team, how he's better closer to the basket. And instead of Giannis being that guy to help close defensively in the clutch, it was Brook Lopez alongside Damian Lillard while Dame did his thing offensively. In addition to that, we just had some other guys who got some interesting minutes. As I mentioned, we had no Chris Middleton tonight, so I knew the minute allocation in itself was going to be a little different, especially on the first night of a back-to-back, because you're always interested to see if guys are going to be rested or whatever the case may be. Jay Crowder actually led the team in minutes tonight. He started for Chris and kept running with the bench unit too. The man had 37 minutes tonight. Andre Jackson Jr. got some minutes in the second quarter with Marjan. It was the only Andre Jackson Jr. minutes we got tonight. And although he had 3 fouls in 4 minutes, he has just such quick feet, and you see the potential of him, the hustle he had as well. Marjan and Cam also had season highs in minutes with 27 and 24 respectively. And I think I might have mentioned it. I'm not sure if it was actually on while we were recording or before, but all that being said, with the minute allocations and everything like that, it should also be noted that with the Celtics losing to the 76ers tonight, with everything the Bucks still have to figure out, the Bucks are currently second in the East at 5-2 right now behind the 6-1 76ers. So something to be said about being able to pull out wins while figuring out your rotations and also figuring out ways to win and showing up in the clutch.
Yeah, let's give a shout out to Brook Lopez. I mean, if
Absolutely.
you're going to talk about showing up in the clutch, we saw last game Brook was not in the game in clutch time because of matchup reasons. That's going to happen, right? I mean, the Bucks won an NBA championship. Brook wasn't closing any of those games really because matchup wise, it made sense to go smaller. Tonight, it did make sense, especially with Giannis not available, to have Brook in there. One play that was huge. I can't remember if they were down, how many points they were down, but there was that play where Dame, I think he went for like a drive, missed. The Pistons go quickly the other way. Brook's like the only man back, and he's able to get a contest and a block on, I can't remember if it was Kate or who it was, but basically, it was one of those plays where it's transition and, if advantage offense, and it was kind of a developing sort of 2-on-1 type situation. Brook comes up with a big block, and then Beasley comes away with it, and Dame was cherry picking still on the other end. Beasley throws the long touchdown pass to Dame for the lefty layup. And, that's like one of those swing plays where if that swings the other way, if Dame misses and then the Pistons get a bucket out of it and then Bucks have to play half court, that may flip the game, right? That could be the difference between winning and losing. So huge play there from Brook. He had another contest really late. I don't know if he actually blocked it. Was it Duran that got the offensive rebound and it looked like he had a layup and Brook contested it, forced a miss. They get the ball back again there. And then, the 3-pointer, right? That was a
Huge.
pure vibes shot there. Trail man, he would almost got stomped on the other end of the floor. gets up, last man down the floor. Jay Crowder catches at the top of the key on a ball rotation and just kind of shovels it over to Brook to launch, a 28-footer or whatever it was from the left wing. And if he misses, it's like, dude, why are you shooting that shot, man? But Brook has earned the right to put up a maybe a speculative 3-point shot that when you should be maybe running clock a little bit more. So that was huge, right? They had just taken the lead on a bucket from Dame. They get a stop, and then Brook gives them that lead that was 4 with whatever it was, like 40 seconds or something, whatever it was. And it felt like at that point, oh, okay, we got this. Unfortunately, Cade Cunningham then hits like a really tough corner 3 out of an inbounds play. It was kind of like that play actually reminded me of, you remember how like for 5 years, seemingly the only play the Bucks ran out of late game timeouts was that coffin corner play to Chris.
Yep.
And usually it wouldn't work, and then we'd all just complain on Twitter about like, oh, it's the only play the Bucks ever run. What the hell? Like, why do they keep running? It never works. Anyway, it worked for the Pistons tonight. But yeah, shout out to Brook for that. And Andre Jackson, okay. So Camille, you talked about, calling it like we see it. Let me say this. I was much more skeptical of Andre Jackson and that draft pick, based on what we saw in Summer League preseason. And just like the hypothetical fit when you have Giannis as your best player. Like when I've watched Andre Jackson, like it's just very hard. He's such a weird player. And I don't mean that just as an insult, but he's such a weird player because he clearly has pretty good ball handling. He's got good passing instincts. I think he's a generally pretty high IQ player on both ends. But like he can't, he could not score at all in college. He's super athletic, had no idea how to make easy baskets for himself, even with athleticism and dribbling and all that stuff. Baffling to me, right? People always just say, "Oh, he can't shoot." He does not know how to score. Like he averaged 6 points per game in college. His career high was like 15 points. Okay, like it makes no sense that he could not do more offensively as a scorer in college. So hopefully, like something about more space in the NBA, better players, whatever, maybe helps him a little bit. But I was like definitely like concerned that it's like, man, as good as he might be defensively, it's just really hard to be like the 5th guy in an important lineup in crunch time when you just cannot shoot at all, especially when you have a guy like Giannis who's not a floor spacer and needs, can't afford to have like guys that can be left alone on the perimeter. So I was always kind of like, man, it just feels like there's an inherent limit on how much value he can have for the Bucks. But in some of the preseason games in particular, like Vegas, I thought he was just like, it was hard for me in Vegas because like he just fouled a ton and not playing with good players, I think probably like also made him worse because he had to do more and he just doesn't know how to do that, right? He just throws up lots of random floaters and stuff. But it just felt, I am coming to a compliment. This is a long-winded way of, I am going to say something nice. 4 minutes, 3 fouls. That stat line is like, perfect fodder for me to go into my old man yelling at cloud mode and be like, oh, the kids, they don't know how to play basketball. I enjoyed 4 minutes of total chaos, 3 fouls. Okay, not great, whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think we did see even in that sort of some glimpses of why I think he's an intriguing guy that I'm excited. I'm excited to see him at some point get some run this year. And I don't think he's going to be a key rotation guy in the playoffs or something. I'm not expecting that. I think, I'm too old to be expecting 2nd round picks who like have such severe, like obvious offensive limitations to just like figure it out and be like useful playoff guys. But especially on this roster, like they are in such desperate need of someone who can do what Andre Jackson does.
Exactly.
And it's some of the same stuff that Marjon does, but like Andre is like almost like a more extreme version of it because like he can't shoot, he's so limited offensively as a scorer. But he creates so much chaos on defense. And I don't know, just like the energy he brings, willingness to push the ball up the floor. We saw that in the preseason for some fun moments. I thought tonight was a great night for him to get a look, just because it was against another kind of like young team. So it wasn't like he was having to go out there against, the Celtics or, the Warriors or some like veteran team that that can maybe take advantage of some of that youthful indiscretion. So yeah, I enjoyed what I saw from Andre. I've been worn down enough by watching the Bucks regular rotation guys try to play defense, especially the smaller guys, that I am fully desperate for anyone who's younger
Look
and
at that.
energetic and not old and slow, to maybe get a shot at some point. So it's perhaps out of desperation, Camille, that I'm feeling good and interested in Andre and Marjan and those guys. But yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see how much we can get those guys on the floor
Absolutely.
and get a look at them. And honestly, I mean the reality has been the Bucks have been like remarkably healthy, right? I mean, they basically have had no injuries other than Marjan and his random illness,
Knock
and
on wood.
Chris just getting kind of these planned rests on the first night of back to back. So at some point there will be real injuries, and again, hopefully, obviously, there's nothing serious, and you hope obviously that the kind of core four guys stay healthy. But when if some of the other guys have like random injuries that keep them out, a few games here and there, then that's going to be the open door for Andre, right? I mean, I think he's pretty squarely like the 11th guy right
Mhm.
now. So he's not going to play most nights, but on a night like tonight where Chris is out, Giannis ends up getting ejected. We
Why not?
do. Why not? Yeah, throw a little bit of Andre Jackson into the mix, and we'll see. Hopefully he can build on this a little bit, and at some point, maybe. I mean, I think that he's gonna have spells probably where he'll be fun and get some time, and I think, like we've said with Marjan, a lot of it's just like, can he just be consistent, not foul,
Yeah.
make good enough decisions? But yeah, well, it's a weird
Keep
night.
an eye out. Yeah.
Let's keep the vibes positive.
I'm absolutely with that, and with that, I think that's a good note to end the podcast on this evening. Bucks fans would love to hear from you guys in the comments. Let us know how you're feeling after this close win over the Detroit Pistons. As a reminder, tomorrow there will be a pregame show for the Pacers Bucks game, as well as a postgame show with Justin and Frank. So make sure you guys come back. On behalf of Frank and myself, we wish you all well, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.